The cafe was alive with chatter. People came and went, some stopping to order coffee, while others sat at small wooden tables scattered around the room. The air smelled of freshly brewed espresso and warm pastries. It was a cozy place, tucked away in a busy street in downtown Chicago. Outside, cars honked and people hurried by, but inside, the noise faded into soft murmurs and the occasional clink of cups. Emily Carter adjusted her scarf as she pushed open the door. She glanced around nervously, her eyes scanning the room for someone who might be waiting for her. This was her first blind date, and she wasn't sure what to expect. Her best friend, Mia, had set it up, promising that the guy was perfect for her. Emily didn't believe in perfect matches, not after the string of disappointments she'd faced in the dating world. But Mia had insisted, saying, "You never know until you try." Emily sighed and made her way to an empty table near the corner. She chose a spot where she could see most of the cafe without being too visible herself. Pulling out her phone, she checked the time. 5 minutes late. Maybe he wasn't coming. That wouldn't surprise her. Blind dates often fell through, especially when arranged by well-meaning friends who thought they knew better. She fidgeted with the napkin in front of her, smoothing its edges over and over again. Her mind wandered to all the reasons why this might go wrong. What if he was rude? Or boring? Or worse, what if he turned out to be one of those guys who talked endlessly about themselves without ever asking a single question about her? She shuddered at the thought. Across the cafe, Ethan Hayes sat quietly at another table. His hoodie was pulled up slightly, hiding his face from view. To anyone passing by, he looked like just another customer, a regular guy enjoying a quiet afternoon. No one would guess that he was worth millions, or that his name was mentioned in business circles alongside tech giants. Today, he wanted nothing more than to blend in. Ethan tapped his fingers lightly on the surface of the table, glancing at his watch every few seconds. He had agreed to this blind date only because his sister, Rachel, had begged him. "You're always working," she had said. "You need to get out there and meet someone special." Special wasn't exactly what Ethan had in mind, but he couldn't say no to Rachel. So here he was, sitting alone in a cafe, waiting for a stranger. Emily shifted in her seat, still looking around. She spotted a man walk in, wearing a suit and holding a rose. He scanned the room, his gaze lingering on her for a moment before moving on. Emily felt a twinge of disappointment. Was that him? If so, he clearly hadn't recognized her. She absent-mindedly picked up her cup of water and took a sip, trying to calm her nerves. Just then, someone approached the table next to hers. A woman with bright red hair sat down, pulling out her laptop. Emily watched as the woman typed furiously, completely absorbed in whatever she was doing. Feeling a bit awkward sitting alone, Emily turned her attention back to her phone. She opened a news app, but couldn't focus on the headlines. Instead, her thoughts drifted to her own life. At 27, Emily was juggling 2 jobs to pay off student loans. By day, she worked as a graphic designer for a small marketing firm. By night, she freelanced, taking on projects whenever she could find them. Money was tight, and she often worried about whether she'd ever be able to pursue her dream of opening her own design studio. Still, she refused to give up hope. Someday, she told herself, things would get better. Unbeknownst to Emily, Ethan was having similar thoughts. Though his circumstances were vastly different, he too felt a sense of restlessness. Running a successful tech company came with its own set of challenges. Long hours, endless meetings, and constant pressure to innovate left little room for personal happiness. Lately, he'd been wondering if there was more to life than work. Rachel's insistence on setting him up on a blind date had seemed ridiculous at first, but now sitting here, he found himself curious about the idea of meeting someone. As the minutes ticked by, Emily grew increasingly anxious. Maybe her date wasn't coming. Maybe he'd changed his mind. Just as she was about to text Mia to ask what was going on, she noticed movement out of the corner of her eye. A man was heading toward her table. He looked familiar, though she couldn't quite place him. As he drew closer, she realized he was heading straight for her. "Hi," the man said, smiling warmly. "Are you waiting for someone?" Emily blinked, surprised. For a moment, she thought maybe this was her date. But something about him didn't match the description Mia had given her. Still, she nodded hesitantly. Yeah, I think so." The man chuckled. "Mind if I sit here while we figure it out? My table's feeling a little lonely." Emily hesitated, but then shrugged. "Sure, why not?" He slid into the chair across from her, placing his phone face down on the table. Up close, she noticed how kind his eyes were. There was a warmth to him that put her at ease. "I'm Ethan," he said, extending his hand. "Emily," she replied, shaking it. His grip was firm but gentle. They started talking, and within moments, Emily forgot all about her blind date. Ethan asked her questions about her work, genuinely interested in what she had to say. When she mentioned her struggles with student loans, he nodded sympathetically. "I've been there," he said. "It's tough, but you'll get through it." Encouraged by his understanding tone, Emily opened up about her dreams of starting her own design studio someday. Ethan listened intently, asking thoughtful follow-up questions. In turn, he shared stories about his own career, though he kept the details vague. He spoke about the importance of perseverance and passion, qualities he admired in Emily. Time flew by unnoticed. They laughed together, finding common ground in their love for books and music. At one point, Ethan joked about how much he hated small talk, and Emily burst out laughing. "Finally, someone who gets it," she exclaimed. It wasn't until a waiter approached their table that Emily realized something was off. "Excuse me," the waiter said, addressing Ethan. "Your order is ready at the counter." Ethan frowned. "Order? I didn't owe." Suddenly, it clicked. He looked at Emily, realization dawning on his face. "Wait a second. Are you my blind date?" Emily stared at him, confused. "What?" "No, I'm waiting for someone else." "Are you?" They both paused, looking at each other. Then, simultaneously, they laughed. "I think we've got our tables mixed up," Ethan said. Emily glanced around and spotted the man with the rose again. He was standing near the entrance, looking lost. "Oh no," she groaned. "That must be my date." Ethan followed her gaze and smirked. "Well, I guess fate has other plans for us today." Despite the mix-up, neither of them seemed eager to part ways. Emily suggested they help each other smooth things over with their respective dates. But when she finally met the man with the rose, she found him arrogant and uninteresting. Relieved, she decided to leave with Ethan instead, feeling more connected to him than anyone else she'd met recently. As they walked out of the cafe together, Emily couldn't help but smile. Little did she know, this chance encounter would change her life forever. The days following their accidental meeting at the cafe passed quickly for Emily. She couldn't stop thinking about Ethan, his warm smile, his easy laugh, the way he listened to her as if every word mattered. It wasn't just that he was nice. It was something deeper. He made her feel seen in a way no one else ever had. For someone like Emily, who spent most of her time juggling responsibilities and trying to keep her head above water, that feeling was rare. Ethan felt the same pull toward Emily. After years of dealing with people who only seemed interested in his wealth or connections, meeting someone who treated him like an ordinary person was refreshing. He found himself replaying their conversation from the cafe over and over in his mind. The way she talked about her dreams, her determination to succeed despite the odds, it inspired him. He admired her grit and honesty, qualities that were hard to come by in his world. A few days later, Ethan decided to reach out. He sent her a simple text message. "Hey, Emily, I know things got a little mixed up the other day, but I had a great time talking to you. Would you like to grab coffee? Sometime? No mix-ups this time, I promise." Emily read the message with a grin. She hadn't expected to hear from him again, but part of her hoped he would. Something about their encounter felt unfinished, like they'd barely scratched the surface of what could be. She typed back quickly, "Sure, I'd love that. How? About tomorrow afternoon?" They met at a small coffee shop near Emily's office. This time, there were no mix-ups or mistaken tables. They sat across from each other, sipping their drinks and picking up right where they'd left off. The conversation flowed effortlessly, jumping from topic to topic. They discovered they both loved old movies, hated pineapple pizza, and shared a deep appreciation for rainy days. As they talked, Ethan subtly hinted at his success. He mentioned that he worked in tech and had founded a company a few years ago. But he downplayed it, saying things like, "It's not as exciting as it sounds," or "I'm just lucky things worked out." Emily nodded politely, assuming he was being modest. To her, Ethan didn't seem like the kind of guy who bragged about achievements. If anything, he seemed almost embarrassed to bring it up. Over the next few weeks, they continued meeting up. Sometimes it was coffee, sometimes dinner, and once they even went to a local art gallery together. Each outing brought them closer. Emily loved how comfortable she felt around him. He never judged her for her financial struggles or made her feel inferior because of her humble background. Instead, he encouraged her to chase her dreams and reminded her how talented she was. For Ethan, spending time with Emily was a breath of fresh air. In his usual social circles, conversations often revolved around money, status, and power. With Emily, none of that mattered. She cared about the things that truly counted: kindness, humor, and authenticity. Being with her made him forget about the pressures of his job and the expectations placed on him as a wealthy entrepreneur. One evening, after a long day at work, Emily met Ethan at a park downtown. They walked along the winding paths, enjoying the cool breeze and the golden glow of the setting sun. As they strolled, Emily opened up about her fears and insecurities. She told him how overwhelming it felt to carry so much responsibility at such a young age. "Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever catch a break," she admitted softly. "Like, will I always have to fight this hard just to survive?" Ethan stopped walking and turned to face her. His expression was serious but gentle. "You're stronger than you think, Emily, and you don't have to do it all alone. Let me help you." Emily shook her head, smiling faintly. "That's sweet. But I don't want anyone carrying my weight for me. I need to figure this out on my own." "I get that," Ethan said. "But letting someone support you doesn't mean you're weak. It means you trust them enough to lean on them when you need to." His words stayed with her long after their walk ended. For the first time in a while, Emily allowed herself to imagine a future where she didn't have to shoulder everything by herself. Maybe having someone like Ethan in her life wouldn't be such a bad thing. Meanwhile, Ethan was wrestling with doubts of his own. He knew he was falling for Emily, but he also worried about the gap between their worlds. Could someone like her really understand the complexities of his life? And more importantly, would she still feel the same way about him if she knew the full extent of his wealth? He decided to test the waters one evening. As they sat together in a quiet corner of a bookstore, flipping through pages of novels neither of them intended to buy, Ethan casually mentioned a recent business trip to New York. "I stayed at this hotel overlooking Central Park," he said. "The view was incredible. You should see it sometime." Emily smiled, imagining the scene. "That sounds amazing. I've never been to New York, though. Maybe someday." Ethan hesitated and added, If you ever want to go, let me know. I'd love to show you around." Emily laughed lightly. "Thanks, but I doubt I'll be booking any fancy hotels anytime soon. My budget is more motels off the highway than luxury suites." Ethan chuckled, but inside he felt a pang of guilt. He wanted to tell her everything, to explain who he really was and why he lived the way he did. But he was afraid. Afraid she might look at him differently. Afraid she might think he was showing off, or worse, that she'd assume he was only interested in her because of some misguided sense of charity. Despite these lingering concerns, their connection continued to grow. They started texting daily, sharing snippets of their lives with each other. Emily sent Ethan pictures of her latest design projects, while Ethan shared photos of his dog, Max, lounging on the couch. Their bond became a constant source of joy. For both of them, a bright spot in otherwise hectic lives. One Friday night, Ethan invited Emily to join him for dinner at a cozy Italian restaurant. The ambiance was intimate, with soft lighting and the faint sound of jazz playing in the background. Over plates of pasta and glasses of wine, they talked about everything and nothing. At one point, Emily leaned back in her chair and sighed contentedly. "I don't know what it is about you," she said, smiling, "but I feel like I can just be myself around you. No pretending, no second guessing. It's nice." Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. "That's because you don't have to pretend with me, Emily. You're perfect just the way you are." Her cheeks flushed, and she looked down, embarrassed but touched by his sincerity. For a moment, the rest of the world seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them in that cozy little restaurant dot. As the night drew to a close, Ethan walked Emily to her car. Before she got in, he hesitated, then said, "Thank you for tonight, for all of this, really. You have no idea how much it means to me." Emily tilted her head, curious. "What do you mean?" He smiled, choosing his words carefully. "You make me believe that maybe I don't have to choose between being successful and being happy. That maybe I can have both if I'm with the right person." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She didn't know how to respond, so she simply squeezed his hand and said, "Me too." Driving home that night, Emily couldn't stop smiling. She knew she was falling for Ethan, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel scared about it. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them, as long as he was by her side. Unbeknownst to her, Ethan was grappling with his own fears. He cared deeply for Emily, but he couldn't shake the worry that their differences might ultimately drive them apart. Still, as he watched her drive off into the night, he resolved to take things one step at a time. For now, he was content to enjoy the magic of the present moment, a moment that felt like the beginning of something truly special. As weeks turned into months, Emily and Ethan's relationship grew stronger. They spent more time together, learning new things about each other and sharing pieces of their lives that they rarely revealed to anyone else. Emily introduced Ethan to her favorite spots in the city, small, hidden places like a tucked-away bookstore with creaky wooden floors, or a tiny bakery that made the best chocolate croissants. In return, Ethan showed her parts of his world, though he still kept certain aspects of it under wraps. One Saturday afternoon, they went to a farmer's market near Emily's apartment. The air was crisp, and the streets were alive with the sounds of vendors calling out their prices and customers chatting happily. Emily led Ethan through the stalls, pointing out fresh produce and handmade crafts. She bought a jar of honey from a friendly beekeeper and handed it to Ethan with a grin. "This is for you," she said. "It's sweet, just like you." Ethan laughed, tucking the jar into his bag. "I think I'm going to start charging rent for all the compliments you give me." "Well, maybe if you didn't deserve them so much, I wouldn't have to say them," Emily teased. Their banter was playful, but there was always an underlying warmth between them. Even in crowded places like the market, it felt like they existed in their own little bubble, separate from the noise and chaos around them. For Emily, being with Ethan was easy. He made her laugh, listened when she needed to vent, and never judged her for her struggles. And for Ethan, Emily was a constant reminder of what truly mattered in life: connection, kindness, and authenticity. But as close as they became, secrets lingered beneath the surface. Ethan hadn't told Emily the full truth about his wealth, and while he knew it wasn't fair to keep it from her, he worried about how she might react. What if knowing changed the way she saw him? What if she thought he was only trying to impress her, or that he pitied her? Emily, on the other hand, had no idea that Ethan was hiding anything. To her, he was just Ethan, a smart, funny, and incredibly kind man who happened to work in tech. She didn't question why he drove a luxury car or why his clothes always looked expensive, but understated. She assumed he was doing well for himself, but she never imagined the scale of his success. The turning point came one quiet evening, when Emily was scrolling through social media on her phone. She wasn't someone who spent hours online, but occasionally she liked to catch up on posts from friends and family. As she scrolled, a photo caught her eye. It showed a man shaking hands with a famous CEO at a charity gala. The caption read, "Ethan Hayes, founder of Innovatech, alongside Jonathan Price at last night's fundraising event." Emily froze, staring at the screen. At first, she thought it was a coincidence. There were probably lots of people named Ethan Hayes in the world. But as she zoomed in on the photo, her heart sank. The man in the picture was unmistakably her Ethan. His face, his smile, it was him. Her mind raced. How could this be? Ethan had mentioned working in tech, but he'd never said anything about being the founder of a major company. Innovatech was everywhere these days. She'd seen ads for their products and heard coworkers talking about how innovative they were. If Ethan really was behind all of that, then he wasn't just successful, he was rich. Extremely rich. Emily felt a mix of emotions, shock, confusion, and even a twinge of betrayal. Why hadn't he told her? Did he think she wouldn't understand? Or worse, did he think she'd only care about his money? When Ethan arrived at her apartment later that evening, she was waiting for him, her arms crossed and her expression unreadable. He noticed the tension immediately. "Hey," he said cautiously, "is everything okay? Were you ever going to tell me?" Emily asked, holding up her phone so he could see the photo. Ethan's shoulders sagged. He had known this moment would come eventually, but he hadn't expected it to happen like this. "Emily, I can explain," he began. "Explain what?" She interrupted, her voice rising slightly. "That you're some millionaire tech mogul who decided to play pretend with me? That everything we've shared has been based on lies?" "It's not like that," Ethan said quickly. "I didn't lie to you. I didn't want my wealth to overshadow who I am. I wanted you to see me, not my bank account, not my company, but me." Emily shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "You should have trusted me enough to tell me the truth. Instead, you let me believe something completely different. Do you know how that makes me feel?" Ethan stepped closer, his voice soft but urgent. "I'm sorry, Emily. Truly I am. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was scared that if you knew, you'd treat me differently. People always do. They either idolize me or resent me, and I hate it. With you, I finally felt normal. Like I could just be myself." For a long moment, Emily didn't say anything. She stared at him, searching his face for any sign of dishonesty. All she saw was sincerity. Finally, she sighed and looked away. "I get it, okay? I understand why you did it. But it doesn't make it hurt any less." Ethan nodded, his chest tight with guilt. "I'll do whatever it takes to make this right," he said. "Just tell me what you need." Emily wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. I need time to process this. It's a lot to take in. Of course, Ethan said quietly. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. After he left, Emily sat alone in her apartment, replaying their conversation in her mind. Part of her wanted to be angry, to lash out at Ethan for keeping such a huge part of himself hidden. But another part of her understood where he was coming from. She had seen how people treated those with money, either fawning over them or resenting them, and she knew it couldn't be easy to deal with that kind of attention all the time. Still, the revelation left her feeling uneasy. Could their relationship survive such a big secret? And even if it could, how would she navigate the differences between their worlds? She had grown up struggling to make ends meet, while Ethan lived the life most people could only dream of. Was it possible for two people from such different backgrounds to truly connect? Over the next few days, Emily avoided contacting Ethan. She threw herself into her work, hoping that staying busy would help her sort through her feelings. But no matter how hard she tried, thoughts of him kept creeping back into her mind. She missed his laugh, his kindness, the way he made her feel like she was the most important person in the room. Eventually, she realized she couldn't ignore the situation forever. One evening, after finishing a late-night freelance project, she picked up her phone and sent him a text. Can we talk tomorrow? There's a park near my place. Meet me there at noon? Ethan replied almost instantly. Of course. I'll be there. The next day, they met at the park. The weather was cool, and leaves crunched underfoot as they walked along the path. Neither of them spoke at first, the silence heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Emily broke it. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, she began, and I believe you. I don't think you hid your wealth because you thought I'd judge you. You did it because you wanted to protect yourself. Ethan nodded slowly. That's true. But I also realize now that I should have trusted you. Keeping something like that from you wasn't fair. No, it wasn't, Emily agreed. But I forgive you. What matters to me isn't your money. It's who you are. And the Ethan I know is someone I care about deeply. Relief washed over Ethan's face, but it was tinged with sadness. Thank you for that, he said. But I know this changes things. If you want to walk away, I'll understand. Emily hesitated, then shook her head. I don't want to walk away. Not yet, anyway. I care about you too much to give up without trying. But we're going to have to figure out how to deal with everything. Your world is so different from mine, and I don't know if I can handle that. We'll figure it out together, Ethan said firmly. I'm not asking you to change who you are, or to fit into my world. I just want to be with you, whatever that looks like. Emily smiled faintly, touched by his determination. Okay, she said softly. Let's try. As they continued walking, the weight between them lifted slightly. They both knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they were willing to face it together. For now, that was enough. After their heartfelt talk in the park, Emily and Ethan decided to take things slow. They both knew that building trust again would take time, especially given the gap between their worlds. But they were determined to make it work. For Emily, this meant learning more about Ethan's life as a millionaire entrepreneur, while for Ethan, it meant proving to her that he valued her for who she was, not for what she could offer him. Their first real test came during a charity gala hosted by Ethan's company. It was one of the biggest events of the year, attended by business leaders, celebrities, and influential figures from all over the country. Ethan had invited Emily weeks earlier, explaining that it was an important evening for him, but assuring her that she didn't need to feel pressured. You don't have to come if you're not comfortable, he said, but I'd love for you to be there. Emily hesitated at first. The thought of walking into a room full of wealthy, powerful People made her nervous. She worried she wouldn't fit in, or that people would judge her because of her background. Still, she didn't want to let Ethan down. So after borrowing a simple black dress from her best friend Mia, she agreed to go. On the night of the gala, Emily stood outside the Grand Hotel where the event was being held. Her heart pounded as she watched limousines pull up and elegantly dressed guests step out onto the red carpet. She felt completely out of place, clutching her small purse tightly as she waited for Ethan to arrive. When he finally appeared, dressed in a sleek suit that highlighted his confident demeanor, Emily couldn't help but feel a little intimidated. Yet, when he saw her, his face lit up with genuine joy. "You look beautiful," he said, taking her hand. His warmth helped calm her nerves, and together they walked inside. The ballroom was breathtaking, sparkling chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and tables adorned with gold accents lined the edges of the space. A live band played soft music in the background, and waiters moved gracefully through the crowd, carrying trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. To Emily, it felt like stepping into another world. Ethan introduced her to several of his colleagues and friends, each interaction making her feel more self-conscious. Some of them were polite but distant, while others seemed curious about how she fit into Ethan's life. One woman, in particular, caught Emily off guard. Dressed in an extravagant gown and dripping with jewelry, she raised an eyebrow as Ethan introduced Emily as his girlfriend. "So, what do you do?" the woman asked bluntly, her tone laced with skepticism. "I'm a graphic designer," Emily replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "I work for a marketing firm and also freelance." On the side, the woman smirked. "How quaint. Must be nice to have hobbies." Emily flushed, feeling small and insignificant. Before she could respond, Ethan stepped in. "Emily is incredibly talented," he said firmly, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Her work speaks for itself, and I'm lucky to have her in my life." The woman looked taken aback by Ethan's station. The charity gala left Emily feeling more conflicted than ever. On one hand, Ethan's defense of her against the rude woman had touched her deeply. It showed that he truly cared about her and wasn't ashamed to stand by her side, even in front of his elite crowd. But on the other hand, the evening had reminded her just how different their worlds were. The glitz and glamour of Ethan's life felt foreign and sometimes suffocating to someone like her, who was used to scraping by and working hard for every small victory. Over the next few days, Emily found herself withdrawing slightly from Ethan. She didn't mean to, but doubts kept creeping into her mind. Was she good enough for him? Could she really handle being part of his world without losing herself in the process? These questions weighed heavily on her, and though she tried to push them aside, they lingered like a shadow. Ethan noticed the change immediately. Emily, who usually greeted him with a warm smile and an easy laugh, now seemed distant. When he asked if something was wrong, she brushed it off, saying she was just tired or stressed about work. But Ethan knew better. He could see the hesitation in her eyes, the way she sometimes paused before responding to him, as if choosing her words carefully. One evening, after another quiet dinner together, Ethan decided it was time to address the issue head-on. As they sat on a bench overlooking the city skyline, he turned to her and said, "Emily, I can tell something's bothering you. Please talk to me." Emily hesitated, staring at her hands. For a moment, she considered brushing him off again, but then she realized she owed him honesty. "It's just, I don't know if I belong in your world, Ethan," she admitted softly. "That night at the gala, it made me feel so out of place, like I'll never measure up." Ethan sighed, his expression softening. "Emily, you don't have to measure up to anything. You're perfect exactly as you are. My world isn't better than yours. It's just different. And honestly, I've always admired how grounded and real you are." That's something I wish more people in my life had. But what about everyone else? Emily countered. What about the people who look down on me because I'm not rich or famous or whatever? How am I supposed to deal with that? You don't have to deal with them alone, Ethan replied firmly. I'll always be here to support you, no matter what. If anyone has a problem with you, they'll have to go through me first. His words brought tears to Emily's eyes. She wanted to believe him, but fear still gripped her heart. It's not just about them, she confessed. It's about me, too. Sometimes I wonder if I'm holding you back. If being with me means you have to give up parts of your life that matter to you. Ethan reached out and took her hand, his grip firm yet gentle. Listen to me, he said. You're not holding me back. You're making my life better. Before I met you, I felt like something was missing. Like all the success in the world couldn't fill this emptiness inside me. But then I found you, and suddenly everything made sense. You make me happy, Emily. Happier than I've ever been. Emily looked at him, searching his face for any sign of doubt. All she saw was sincerity. Still, the nagging voice in her head wouldn't quiet down. What if it's too hard? She whispered. What if we can't make this work? We won't know unless we try, Ethan said simply. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Are you? Emily didn't answer right away. Instead, she thought about everything they'd been through, the mix-up at the cafe, their growing connection, the challenges they'd already faced. Despite her fears, she couldn't deny how much Ethan meant to her. He had become a part of her life in ways she hadn't anticipated, and the thought of walking away from him hurt more than anything else. Finally, she nodded. Okay, she said softly. Let's try, but promise me one thing. Anything, Ethan said. Promise me that we'll always be honest with each other, Emily continued. No more secrets, no more hiding things because we're scared. If we're going to do this, we need to trust each other completely. I promise, Ethan said without hesitation. No more secrets. Despite their renewed commitment, challenges continued to arise. One of the biggest came from Ethan's family. His parents, wealthy and influential, had always expected him to marry someone from their social circle, someone who understood the pressures of maintaining wealth and status. When they learned about Emily, they weren't pleased. Ethan's mother, Margaret, invited Emily to lunch under the guise of getting to know her better. At first, Emily thought it might be a chance to prove herself, to show Ethan's family that she genuinely cared about him. But as soon as they sat down at the upscale restaurant, it became clear that Margaret had other intentions. So, Emily, Margaret began, her tone polite but probing. What exactly do you plan to contribute to my son's life? Emily blinked, caught off guard by the directness of the question. I'm not sure what you mean, she replied cautiously. Margaret smiled thinly. Well, Ethan has worked very hard to build his company and establish himself. He needs someone who can support him in that journey, not distract him or hold him back. Emily felt a surge of anger, but forced herself to stay calm. I would never hold Ethan back, she said evenly. In fact, I think I bring something to his life that he hasn't had before: balance, perspective, and maybe even a little fun. Margaret raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. Fun is fine, dear, but it doesn't pay the bills. Do you really think you're prepared for the responsibilities that come with being married to someone like Ethan? The comment stung, but Emily refused to let it shake her confidence. With all due respect, Mrs. Hayes, love isn't about what you can offer someone financially. It's about supporting each other, respecting each other, and building a life together. I may not come from Ethan's world, but I care about him more than anything. Isn't that what matters most? Margaret studied her for a long moment before nodding curtly. We'll see, she said, as if issuing a challenge. When Emily told Ethan about the lunch later that day, he was furious. How dare she treat? You like that? He exclaimed. She doesn't get to decide who I should be with. It's okay, Emily assured him, though her voice wavered slightly. I knew it wouldn't be easy. But I meant what I said. I won't let anyone, not even your mom, make me feel like I'm not good enough for you. Ethan pulled her into a tight hug. You are more than good enough, Emily. Don't ever forget that. As weeks passed, Emily and Ethan leaned on each other more than ever. They faced criticism from some of Ethan's business associates, who questioned whether a relationship with someone from a lower socioeconomic background was wise. They dealt with snide comments at social events and awkward silences during family gatherings. Yet, through it all, they held on to their promise to stay honest and supportive. One night, after a particularly difficult day, Emily broke down in tears. I don't know if I can keep doing this, she admitted. It feels like everyone is against us. Ethan held her close, letting her cry until she calmed down. We don't have to prove anything to anyone, he said gently. This is our life, not theirs. If they can't accept you, then that's their loss, not ours. Emily sniffled, looking up at him. Do you really believe that? I do, Ethan said firmly. Because without you, my life wouldn't be worth living. Those words gave Emily strength. Slowly, she began to realize that while their journey wouldn't be easy, it would be worth it as long as they faced it together. Months had passed since Emily and Ethan made their promise to face challenges together. Though life hadn't become easier, they had grown stronger as a couple. Each obstacle they faced only deepened their bond, teaching them how to navigate the complexities of their relationship. But the road ahead still held uncertainties, and both knew that love alone wouldn't be enough unless they were willing to fight for it. One rainy afternoon, Ethan found himself sitting alone in his office, staring out the window at the gray sky. His mind was preoccupied with thoughts of Emily. Lately, she had seemed quieter than usual, almost distant. He worried that despite their efforts, the pressure of their differing worlds was taking its toll on her. Determined to make things right, he decided to surprise her after work. That evening, Ethan showed up at Emily's apartment with 2 cups of hot chocolate and a bouquet of wildflowers. She opened the door, surprised but pleased to see him. What's all this? She asked, smiling faintly. I thought we could use a quiet night in, Ethan replied. Just you, me, and some good conversation. Emily stepped aside to let him in, touched by the gesture. They settled on the couch, sipping their drinks and watching the rain patter against the windows. For a while, they talked about trivial things, the weather, their favorite childhood memories, and a funny story Ethan had heard at work. But eventually, the conversation turned serious. I've been thinking a lot lately, Ethan began, setting his cup down. About us, and about everything we've been through. I know it hasn't been easy, and I hate seeing you struggle because of me. It's not just because of you, Emily interrupted gently. It's everything. Your world is so different from mine, and sometimes I feel like I don't belong there. But I also don't want to ask you to give up parts of your life for me. Ethan reached for her hand, holding it tightly. You're not asking me to give anything up, Emily. You're asking me to grow, to find a way to balance who I am with who we are together. And I'm willing to do that. But I need you to promise me something. What's that? Emily asked softly. Promise me that you'll stop running away, Ethan said earnestly. Whenever things get hard, you distance yourself, like you think leaving will solve everything. But it doesn't. It just makes us both miserable. We can figure this out together, but only if you stay. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she listened to him. She had always prided herself on being independent, on handling problems on her own. But Ethan was right. Running away wouldn't fix anything. If they truly loved each other, they needed to face their challenges head-on, no matter how difficult. I promise, she whispered, squeezing his hand. I won't run anymore. Relieved, Ethan pulled her into a hug, holding her close as the rain continued to fall outside. In that moment, they both felt a renewed sense of hope. Their journey wasn't over, but they were ready to take the next step to build a future that worked for both of them. A few weeks later, Ethan invited Emily to spend a weekend at his family's lakeside cabin. It was a peaceful place, far removed from the pressures of city life, and Ethan hoped it would give them a chance to reconnect without distractions. The cabin was cozy yet elegant, with large windows overlooking the water and a stone fireplace in the living room. On their first morning there, Emily woke up early and wandered outside. The air was crisp and the lake shimmered in the sunlight. As she stood on the dock, lost in thought, Ethan joined her, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "It's beautiful here," Emily said, gazing at the view. "It is," Ethan agreed, "but it's even better with you here." They sat together in silence for a while, enjoying the tranquility. Eventually, Ethan broke the quiet. "Do you remember when we first met? At the cafe?" Emily laughed softly. "How could I forget? I sat at the wrong table, and somehow it led me to you." "I think about that day a lot," Ethan admitted. "If either of us had walked away instead of staying, we might never have found each other. Fate has a funny way of working, doesn't it?" Emily nodded, leaning her head against his shoulder. "Maybe fate brought us together, but it's up to us to decide what happens next." "You're right," Ethan said. "So what do you say? Are we in this for the long haul?" Emily looked at him, her heart swelling with emotion. Despite all the challenges they'd faced, she couldn't imagine her life without him. "Yes," she said firmly. "We're in this together." Ethan smiled, pulling her closer. "Good, because I don't plan on letting you go anytime soon." Over the following months, Emily and Ethan worked hard to create a life that blended their worlds. They compromised on everything, from where to live, a modest but comfortable home near the city, to how to handle social events. They attended fewer galas and spent more time exploring local parks and museums. Slowly, they found a rhythm that worked for both of them. Ethan encouraged Emily to pursue her dream of opening her own design studio, offering to help fund the project if she needed it. At first, Emily hesitated, worried about accepting money from him. But Ethan insisted, reminding her that their partnership was built on trust and equality. "This isn't charity," he told her. "It's an investment in you, in your talent, and in our future." With his support, Emily launched her studio, pouring her heart into every project. To her delight, her business quickly gained traction, earning praise from clients and peers alike. Meanwhile, Ethan scaled back his involvement in his company, delegating more responsibilities to trusted colleagues so he could focus on spending time with Emily. Their friends and families noticed the change in them, though some still harbored doubts about their relationship. Most were impressed by how committed they were to making it work. Even Ethan's mother softened slightly, admitting that Emily's presence seemed to bring out the best in her son. One summer evening, as they strolled along the beach hand in hand, Emily turned to Ethan and said, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't sat at the wrong table that day?" Ethan chuckled. "All the time. But honestly, I think we were meant to meet. Whether it was at the cafe or somewhere else, fate would have found a way to bring us together." Emily smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. "Well, I'm glad it did. Even with all the ups and downs, I wouldn't trade this for anything." "Neither would I," Ethan said, kissing the top of her head. "Because no matter where we started, we ended up exactly where we're supposed to be, with each other." As they walked along the shoreline, the sun dipping below the horizon, Emily and Ethan knew their journey was far from over. Life would continue to throw challenges their way, but they were ready to face them together. After all, love wasn't about avoiding obstacles. It was about finding strength in each other and building a future worth fighting for.